George from Ireland. So this video is about Boris Johnson and is the party over for him in every sense? Because of course it came to light, I think it was on the 11th of January this year, that in May 2021 there was a garden party at 10 Downing Street. That's the Prime Minister's official residence. So Johnson's principal private secretary emailed 100 people by saying, bring your own booze to this summer event. The principal private secretary being a senior civil servant. Of course, Bojo will try and deflect blame onto this guy as though he had no idea what his private secretary was doing. It's your job to know what he's doing, and if you didn't know, you're incompetent. So alcohol, obviously the universal solvent here. And now a social event is unimaginable without it, but you were clearly not working whilst you're drinking alcohol. Of those invited, only about 35 showed up, which proved yet again it was not a work event. If it was a work event, everyone would have turned up, and civil servants down to work after 5 p.m. So Johnson pretends he thought it was a work event, but people had not told to bring booze to this. So the cover-up was the part of the incessant lying to the public. Anyway, this is during strict lockdown. People could get a £10,000 fine for doing something less than this. So the rank hypocrisy is what rankles. His arrogance is going down badly. It's scandalised the UK. He's tried to lie his way out of it and failed. Misleading the House of Commons means you must resign. That's the Constitutional Convention, not justiciable. And it comes hard on the heels of that revelation about that Christmas party in 2020 that his staff held. And apparently there were other staff parties. Now, Johnson wasn't at them. Remember his spokeswoman, Allegra Stratton, she had to resign over that mock press conference she held about the soiree, even though she didn't even attend the party in question. So Bojo's been caught lying about himself and his staff breached the coronavirus rules. But because Downing Street's Crown land apparently is exempt from coronavirus law, but it's clearly not exempt from coronavirus, Bojo himself caught it, almost died in 2020. And what a slap in the face it is to the doctors and nurses who saved him, that there he was doing everything he could to spread the disease. And he's done so much to blame. You know, he didn't institute the first lockdown when we should have. He carried on shaking hands, which is maybe how he got it, setting a bad example. So he's obviously not committed to battling against the pandemic. So on Wednesday this week, Prime Minister's question time, it was quite raucous after a sort of perfunctory acknowledgement of the death of Jack Dromey, a veteran Labour MP. Then Bojo made his statement, his rather unconvincing apology, and then Sir Keir Starmer inveighed against him. Now, Bojo will have anticipated a rough ride, and Starmer demanded that Bojo resign. Bojo, of course, is saying no, trying to maintain his decorum. So Starmer was formerly head of the Crown Prosecution Service, and therefore he's got this barrister's acumen and asks questions with acuity. These rapier-like questions were something that Bojo couldn't deal with. He can't handle cross-examination, and Bojo is a political escapologist. He's got out of so many scrapes before. And just a couple of years ago, his position seemed inassailable with his healthy majority, with Brexit. So Bojo was attacked by all sides of the House. He's obviously developed a thick hide over the years, but they tried to make this half hour of PMQs excruciatingly embarrassing for him. But as a number of them remarked, Bojo is shameless. So Bojo, of course, expected Labour, the SNP, and the Liberal Democrats to give him a hard time, but he was also execrated by his own Tory backbenchers. So his cabinet colleagues were uncharacteristically reticent. So why do they not vociferate for their boss? Because they're people of vaulting ambition. They all want the top spot. Then if the PM resigns, they'll have the chance to be First Lord of the Treasury. So for many of them, it's just about getting to the top of the greasy pole. I can already hear the knives being sharpened by other Tory ministers. And I know the mood in the Conservative Party is very much one of disgruntlement, and Tory MPs are getting wrathful mailbags from their constituents. So stalwart Conservatives are aghast at the PM's behaviour. So I don't think the Tories are willing to kick Bojo out just yet. A lot of it depends on electoral calculation. Is Bojo an asset or a liability? So Bojo thinks this will all blow over. He's ridden out the storm several times before, and as a magazine editor, he knows the public memory is short. Remember Harold Wilson, a week is a long time in politics. And it might seem an overreaction to kick a Prime Minister out over a sixpenny matter. But there's been a PR cataclysm, and he has previous on this one. Dumping a PM is a serious undertaking. And the Prime Minister should not have to resign unless it's something quite major. We don't want to swap Prime Ministers every month. So the Tories might reason that the public will forgive Bojo soon enough. And that's worked from a few times before, but it seems that the public have run out of patience with this one. And the scandal shouldn't detract from Bojo's very real accomplishments. He delivered on Brexit, the economy is growing slowly, steadily, the United Kingdom is shifting to green energy, there have been plenty of trade deals negotiated, he stood firm against a second referendum for North Britain, relations with the European Union are reasonable, as with all the other allies, public services are satisfactory, the vaccination program is one of the fastest in the world. So coronavirus restrictions are gradually being eased off. And if Bojo had not been so moronic, then he'd be riding high in the opinion polls. But as it is, he's 10% behind Labour. So, I mean, he's author of his own misfortune. So Labour, whatever they say, they don't want Bojo to go, because for him, he's the gift that keeps on giving. So he has a richly deserved reputation of being shambolic, mendacious, unserious, and treacherous. Remember, he's on his third marriage. He's got 6 children, 1 love child, 6 legitimate children, 1 love child, and 1 aborted fetus to his credit. And now his philandering was seen as a charming eccentricity by some. How long will his current marriage last? I mean, his wife's 25 years as junior. Bojo's had numerous extramarital affairs. 20 years ago, when he said to The Spectator, he was having an affair with a prominent female London journalist who was also married at the time. But so what could happen now? Well, the 1922 committee is there for Conservative backbenchers, so-called because it was founded in 1922 when Tory backwoodsmen refused to serve under the Liberal Lloyd George any longer, partly due to the Chanak crisis. But if 15% of Tory MPs send a letter to the chair of the 1922 committee expressing no confidence in the party leader, that'll trigger a leadership election. Now, Sir Graham Brady is the chairman, and he's kept stum about how many letters he's received thus far. We just know no, it's not 54. But if there is a leadership challenge, Bojo could, of course, win. In that case, no challenge would be permitted for another 12 months. But if he loses, he's out. It's a new leadership contest in which he can't enter. Because of the 12-month rule, plotters will not be able to move unless they're sure they probably won't move unless they're sure they can get rid of them. An attempt to oust them that fails is the worst of all worlds for the Tory party, because that would leave Bojo wounded but still in office, dragging the party down. If he is defenestrated, an interim leader, they're going to serve until a substantive leader could be elected by the party faithful. So the interim leader would be the Deputy Prime Minister, Dominic Raab. Raab would actually just might be Prime Minister. Probably not. Bojo say, okay, I'll stand on a caretaker capacity for a month or something. But Raab could stand the election and might win. But if not Raab, who would it be? Well, Rishi Sunak is the hot favourite. He's Chancellor Exchequer. He's 41, he's good looking, he's telegenic, he's got no skeletons in his cupboard, he's got a good backstory, self-made multi-millionaire, and he's been a reasonably good chancellor. Raab's also a serious candidate. He's young, but not too young, slightly older than Sunak. He's a razor-sharp former city solicitor. He's likeable, he's results-driven. I mean, he's not that charming. So there are a few minor candidates. Liz Truss, the foreign secretary, anyone who's got one of the great officers of state is likely to go for it, but perhaps a bit of a lightweight, doesn't have a following. Priti Patel is perhaps too acerbic, uncharismatic. Been some, balls ups on her watch, seen as too police state. Sajid Javid, he's perhaps bland and but he stood for the leadership before and lost. He's too religionist, yesterday's man. I think it's all about the local council elections, how that goes. I think they'll keep him till then.